Well, good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. Time for us to begin. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda item 3. If you would like to participate in public participation, there should be sheets.
Yes, on the table.
On the table in the back. All right, so if you want to do that, fill those out and then bring them up either to me or to Valerie. Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Dillon?
Here.
Ms. Griffith? Here. Mr. Rudd?
Here.
Mr. Skidmore?
Here.
Dr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Moeller?
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin? Here. And Mr. Bowman is not, got called into work.
All right. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roman numeral 3A, high school curriculum 2025 and 2026. Mr. McKee.
Thanks so much. It's that time to start talking about next school year already, which is hard to believe. A lot of changes at the high school coming next year, but there's only two I wanted to highlight. If you guys have questions about any others, please let me know. One is the concept of work-based learning, which is a little bit newer to our school. We've done it in other areas like CBI, but we're really trying to expand that. Work-based learning is essentially kids getting firsthand experience in a career during their school day. Sometimes this could be a paid internship, sometimes this could be right here in our school. So we are working to expand that next school year. We have a couple opportunities. This year we actually started a media and film team. So we have 3 students who are running all over the place and they're doing videos for the school, whether that be sports, academics. So those are all work-based learning hours that those 3 kids are accounting for throughout the year. Another one is going to be a teacher academy. Through our youth science interest, we've had a lot of kids interested in teaching. So kids are going to take a class and then they're actually going to be volunteering in the elementary, and during that time they'll be getting work-based learning hours for that. We also have IT solutions, looking at some students helping out our IT department here. We have School-Based Enterprise. Our new business program this year is going to be starting their own business. They've started doing some stuff recently with t-shirt designs for senior night for basketball. I was up in their room the other day. It was really cool to see. They're printing out the screen print. They're putting it on the shirt. It's all right there in our classroom. Really cool to see that all the way through. We also have, this has already been happening in FFA, and then our CBI and our mentorship. Once again, kids are going to be accumulating hours. For every 80 hours that they accumulate, they'll get a half a credit, and they're also getting firsthand experience at a career that could lead them into a future career pathway. So that's one thing we're really excited about. The other is we've been working with Sinclair, and they have actually developed an associate's degree pathway for our students at Valley View now. So we're really excited about this. That way when our kids are taking CCP, which is just becoming more and more popular, we're actually giving them a guide of what to take now. Up until now, kids just kind of take what their friends say they should take. Who knows what they're taking, who knows if it's going to be of benefit, but they've learned to play the game a little bit and they know what classes might be of benefit, but then they also kind of figured out that certain classes maybe I don't have to come to the building as much. So we want to make sure we're giving these students a guide. So to summarize this, kids have roughly 8 different categories that they have to earn hours in. If they earn the hours, so for example in social and behavioral sciences, they have to earn 9 hours. There is 4 different classes that we're going to have right here on campus. And then there's also other options through Sinclair, whether that's on their campus or online. Kids can graduate high school with an associate's degree. So we're really excited about bringing that to Valley View. So those are our 2 big changes that we wanted to highlight. However, we also have some others, some AP courses. We're trying to increase the rigor with those types of courses. We have the Teacher Academy, classes like that. We have an ACT test prep to support our students as they prepare to take the ACT, hopefully gain more scholarships going into college. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. appreciate your effort and work in making those opportunities available. Roman numeral 3B, public participation. Valerie, would you give a quick description of the IDEA Big B and Little B allocations?
Yes, these are our federal grants that we are allocated, and one of the requirements of these grants is that we give the opportunity for the public to comment on the spending of these grants. So we want to do that at a public meeting to satisfy that requirement.
Do we have any other public participation?
Yes, there's one right there next to you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lamb.
Hello? Where'd you like me?
Right there so that that microphone can pick you up and so that the people out there can hear you just fine.
Okay. Facing you guys?
Sure.
Is that the best way to do it?
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, so just recently, Village of Farmersville just posted posted a vision plan for the junior high site. If you're not aware of it, it's a culmination of several meetings this summer with residents, local business owners, and then we just finally put it all together and just presented that recently. So in talking to a school board member, Mr. Dillon, he just suggested that it would be helpful if maybe we were to present this tonight. Not the whole thing, obviously, I'm not going to read it. It is available. I know it's on Farmersville's Facebook page. You can send it to anybody that wants to see it. But essentially, one of the things that the village residents want, and they've been asking for this for like 25 years, so this is nothing new, but a patio home community similar to what was built just off of Weaver Road in Germantown recently. That site would be an excellent opportunity for that. And then in addition to that, we just wanted some type of community space. Not only support that patio home neighborhood, but really for our local business owners to continue to get just Valley View families into Farmersville. So one of the things that was eye-opening to me this summer is we had a local business owner just share. He said, "You wouldn't believe how many people that go to the Valley View community that live in Germantown have never been to Farmersville." And I said, "No, that can't be." So just, I have a 7th grader and 8th grader, and I was asking around with parents, and I was surprised to hear that he was right. That a lot of parents just shared with me that, yeah, we've actually never been to Farmersville until we dropped our kids off at the junior high building for the first time. But you think about it, Farmersville, small community. It's not really on the way to anything from Germantown, so, not totally surprising. So the goal is really for us to use this site to continue to get families, especially in our community, into Farmersville. Metro basketball has been a great addition to our community this year. That's one of the things we were really worried about, talking to local business owners. The amount of traffic in Farmersville has really decreased since the junior high moved here, right? And we expected that, we anticipated that, it's not a surprise. But it's, Metro was a big pickup for us and for them. So if you think about it, when the building was there, drop off your kids, roll through the coffee shop drive-through, right, and move on. Then you come back at night, drop the kids off for sports, maybe grab Village Inn, and then head home. So we just don't have that anymore, other than things like Metro. So we would love to save the gym somehow, some way. This vision just included building a new facility for that, like a pole barn type facility, nothing big or fancy or anything like that. Just to house maybe even the current gym, if we could relocate that, work with a professional to do so, the bleachers, the scoreboard, and that's about it. Another option that is not included in here, but the goal is really just to kind of save some gym space. So I know that you guys have applied or are in the process of applying for a brownfield grant. One of the other things, feedback from the community is, if we could just save the gym that's there, that'd be great. And of course, we'd all love to do that too, but I know the grant right now just includes tearing it all down. But if the grant were to come through, I think it would be worthwhile just having a conversation with Montgomery County Land Bank, the consultant, and/or ODOT, whoever that may be, to just say, hey, can we use those funds to maybe tear down everything just east of the gym, keep everything west, and we would still, have that community space. So just some ideas. Again, it's just vision, nothing set in stone, but again, just thought it'd be worthwhile to kind of share that in the meeting this evening.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Roman numeral 4, approval of minutes. We have the organizational meeting of January 13 and the regular board meeting of January 13. I make a motion that we approve those minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yes.
Ms. Griffith? Yes. Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 5, building project update. Eric?
So the building is fantastic. Everybody loves it. There's nothing you can complain about, right? It's all brand new. I did want to throw in there today, we did change the keys on the primary building and put up no trespassing signs. There will be no one else entering other than after we go through the auction, given your guys' approval tonight. When it comes to the junior high, Valerie and I have been working diligently with our consultant, trying to get through this grant process. It takes a lot of documentation and a lot of time and meetings to get it through. We've came back with a total estimated price of $1.38 million. If we didn't have the land bank involved and it was just on our chest. We're asking you tonight to commit to $278,000 and $278,235 for our portion of the grant match, should we get it. Now, everything that we're spending in the meantime, like getting rid of the underground storage tanks, the asbestos testing, things like that, all count towards our match. Even up to the soil that we're going to haul from the big pile out here up to there, they give us credit for that too. So we're not asking you to actually write a check for that much, but our all-in price will be that much. These documents need to be turned in by the 12th to the land bank, so it's a very time-restricted process.
Okay.
That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Roman numeral 6, Farmersville building update. I think that's the same.
I got it rolled together.
Yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely. Roman numeral 7, financial reports and requests. Subpart A, recommend the board approve the financial statements for the month ending January 31st, 2025, which is attachment number 2. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 7B, recommend the board approve the following donations: Germantown Lions Club, Mary and Dan Hill, and Susan and Frank Kazarek. Valerie, could you give us some detail as to what the donations were, just so we can acknowledge them?
Certainly. These donations are for the Valley View Educational Foundation Naming Rights Program. These are additional donors to that program.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion that we approve those donations?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Obviously, thank you to the donors. Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 7C, recommend the board approve the donation from the Germantown Lions Club for the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. in the amount of $1,000. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we know how that will be dispersed, Valerie?
We are not able to direct it to any particular individual. It is just for the students on the trip as a whole.
I just want to make sure it's equitable across the board. So it sounds like they'll find a way to do so.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Any further discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 7D, recommend the board approve a $40 per month cell phone allowance for the board policy authorized staff for calendar year 2025. Valerie, could you give us a quick description of just who that is and how long we've been doing that?
Yes, this is exactly the same resolution that was on the board agenda in February of last year. Mostly it's the staff members who are required to keep their phone and be available 24/7, essentially to receive phone calls and conduct business.
All right.
Mostly administrators, but not completely.
I make a motion that we approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8, new business, subpart A, personnel. Approve the personnel action as recommended in attachment number 3. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8B, recommend the board approve the resolution authorizing the sale of personal property owned by the board and no longer needed for school purposes. I know this will elicit questions. Valerie, could you give a quick description of what it is we're talking about here?
Yes, this is in order to bring our bidders in to look at the primary building get bids for demolition. The building needs to be empty, and this is to sell the furnishings in that building that are left in the primary building.
So what the resolution is approving, I think this is what you were referring to earlier about changing the locks, is that we'll have a room-by-room auction, and that we're working with an auction company to ensure that every one of the rooms is cleared out. Correct. Do we have a motion that we approve that resolution?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Now, the money will go back into the general funds.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to make that clear for everyone else. I knew the answer, but
Thank you. Good point. All right, Valerie, would you call the roll?
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
yes.
Roman numeral 8C, recommend the board approve the resolution approving the construction documents, cost of work of construction, and issuance of an invitation to bid for general contracting services associated with the district Valley View Primary School abatement and demolition project. We have copies of that resolution. I make a motion that we approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8D, recommend the board approve the resolution authorizing closure of the former Valley View Junior High School in accordance with revised code 3313.49. I make a motion to that effect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8E, recommend the board approve the resolution waiving competitive bidding based on urgent necessity and approving contract with Verdantis LLC for the removal of 3 underground oil storage tanks. Before we make a motion to this, Eric, can you just give a quick description for everybody of what that is and why?
So we believe there are 3 tanks underground up there, and in order for us to qualify for the grant, the site has to be clean outside of asbestos, essentially. So we don't even qualify for the grant that we're trying to get, but they're saying because we're in process that we will.
Okay. And so the urgency described in the resolution is that we need to move on this to get the grant money to hopefully get the building down in a timely manner.
I need your signature tonight to enter the grant documents for the 12th, where we're at.
Yep. Thank you.
Do you mind if we make a quick comment on that?
Sure.
It just might be helpful. I know that those tanks were empty, filled, and basically it's the EPA told us that the local fire department kind of just say, good to go. I don't know what the official terminology is, but if you want to check with the fire station, see if there's some documentation, you may not have to remove them.
We do have to remove them.
Okay.
Because of possible spills.
Got it.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
I will look at it next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That helps.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve that resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8F, recommend the board approve the resolution authorizing memorandum of understanding with Montgomery County Land Reutilization Corporation regarding an application for Ohio Brownfield Remediation Program grant related to the former Valley View Junior High School. I make a motion that we approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8G, recommend the board approve the match commitment letter. I make a motion to that effect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
If we could just capitalize Brownfield, I noticed there was one part in the letter where it had Brownfield as a lowercase, and I didn't want it to come across as in any way disrespectful. I don't know if there is a Mr. Brownfield out there.
It's like in the second sentence.
Yeah, so if we can just make sure that we're using correct punctuation on that, but otherwise than that, I'm good.
Any other discussion? I'll just say I'm thankful for detail people. And also, folks, I don't know if you realize how much work that Valerie and Eric do to get us to this point. And that's not the work that you see every day. And we have some amazing people that are working really hard on this, and I don't want to not recognize them. Did we get a motion in a second?
We got a
We
motion
did.
and a second, but no roll call.
All right, Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8H, recommend the board approve the Valley View Elementary Literacy Plan with board copies. Ms. Cook, could you give a quick description
Yes.
of what that entails?
Yes, Nicole has been working very hard, along with Lindsay, on a literacy plan for our youngsters who are on a RIM. And we're doing morning sessions where the youngsters come in twice a week. And this literacy plan is that plan on paper for the state.
Thank you.
So we're addressing the needs of our students who are struggling.
Will someone make a motion that we approve that?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8I, recommend the board approve the Valley View District Gifted Identification and Service Plan. I make a motion that we approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8J, recommend the board approve the Valley View Middle School 2025-2026 course of studies. We have copies of those. I make a motion we approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8K, recommend the board approve the Valley View High School 2025-2026 course of studies. I make a motion that we approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
And Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8L, discussion of policies. First of all, is 5463 credits for state chartered, special, and non-chartered schools. Ms. Cook or Valerie, would one of you like to give a quick
Ms. Cook could be.
description of that first one?
Yes, that policy calls for any student who is coming in from a non-public, chartered, non-chartered school, including home education, that their credits will be transferred into their Valley View transcript currently as a pass-fail. We have had a request from a family that we transfer in grades as opposed to the pass-fail on the transcript. So currently the policy does not allow us to transfer in grades. We've talked quite extensively with regards to the possibility of transferring in grades if students participate in our end of the year exam and semester exams.
That's an option that's still open for consideration.
Right.
Right. So adopting this policy doesn't change our policy from what it is, but we are considering an option that would give people to essentially the ability to show that the quality of education that they've received in their homeschool environment is substantively equivalent to what our children are tested on here at Valley View.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I make a motion that we approve policy 5463 as it is currently put forward. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The current verbiage does not allow us to bring those grades in, so we would have to do a modification to that policy.
Correct. And I think part of the discussion is that I do think that I would like to hear from the administration, having given this the kind of thought that it deserves, and I'm not saying you haven't, but I think the board probably needs to have a conversation about what it entails to test the students coming in so that we can see, or, okay, well, you got an A in biology, but did you really get an A in biology? Do you know your biology? Because while there are some homeschool families in the community that I have no doubt are providing a very rigorous education for their students, the fact is I just don't know that for everybody. And so
But this is just discussion. We're not approving any policy.
Right.
This is just discussion, so we don't have to vote on this. We're just discussing.
Oh,
Can I ask a question? Has there been any discussion of maybe like a probationary period, like math example? A student had Algebra 1 on a homeschool grade, they take Algebra 2 at the high school, they get an A in Algebra 2, could we possibly consider then letting them keep their homeschool grade if we make that the policy?
That's something that we could add into the policy.
That's what I'm
like
saying. I
that.
know we can't do that now, but is that something that has been discussed or could be thought about maybe?
That has not been discussed, but we can certainly put that in as a bullet point for discussion.
well, it would seem like if we were willing to do the work, I mean, it's going to be work to do those individualized assessments, but frankly, you get a better result when you don't have a one-size-fits-all. And maybe if people are willing, and I'm not in education, I don't know what that work looks like to make that individualized assessment and say, well, do we give credit, going backwards for someone who's demonstrated a proficiency going forward? But I mean, I'd like to hear more.
I think the cleaner version would be to have them take a final exam that we could proctor, because you could essentially get a B in Algebra 1 and get an A in Algebra 2, potentially.
Yeah.
So I think the cleaner version would be to offer them an opportunity to be proctored. That's just my thoughts.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
I understand Algebra 1, you can't do well in Algebra 2 if you don't have the foundations of Algebra 1. That part I get, but I think that might be a cleaner version. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, and the only thing I see that might cause difficulty on that is the student who comes in without that temporal proximity to having taken the class, right? Because Algebra 1 better the day you finish it than you will any day the rest of your life. And so there might be considerations there, but at the same time, there's trade-offs in deciding to homeschool your children and have them come into public school later. And so plenty to think about. All right, discussion on, pediculosis. Who wants to handle the pediculosis discussion?
Ms. Cook.
Ms. Cook.
Okay, this is head lice.
Yeah.
Sarah Pickerel did some research for us with regards to different schools in the area in Southwest Ohio that have a head lice policy that allows students to remain in school if they are identified with NITS. Currently, our policy requires us to send students home whether they have live bugs or NITS. However, the CDC recommendation in most of the schools around us, with the exception of one district, keep their children in school for the remainder of the day, notify the family, and explain to them how to eradicate the NITS, and check them the following day. So the discussion at hand is, are we able to keep children in school with NITS but not live bugs? That would be the change.
I can give some feedback, having been in another district as a school nurse for a short time here nearby, close by Oakwood to be exact. When we run into those situations, the first and foremost thing you want to do is you don't want the child to feel dirty or different or embarrassed. And that's tough, because, so you want to be discreet and careful about that. The other, what they've done is oftentimes they will get a hold of a parent or guardian and say, hey, we found this. Most parents want to come immediately, pick up the child and go try to treat the child. And then they do allow them to come back the next day, because after they have been treated, it's not 100% that all of those nits that may still be remaining on the hair shaft aren't live, but there's a good chance that the chemical has done its job. And so we know that there are some kids with really, really thick hair, and it can take a long time to get rid of all of those nits or the shells of the nits. And so the key is to try to get the kid back to school as quickly as possible, not be singled out or felt to be, made fun of or separated or whatever. So when I first, encountered that, it was totally against what I've ever known. Usually you don't come back until your hair is like squeaky clean and there's nothing in there. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized you know, some kids are at a disadvantage, especially if their homes have been infested, and it's just very, very tough for them to get it under control. And there are a lot of community resources out there to help families, especially if there's a financial need. This stuff is expensive to treat. So, but anyways, I think the bottom line is I think we need to be just really sensitive to those kids out there who potentially are at a deficit. And even those families who are well-to-do, it's still expensive. And it's a lot of work on the family's part to take care of it at home on the home front. So I think anything we can do to get our kids back in school is a good thing. I am not a huge fan of letting them hang around the school all day long, though, with active lice.
Oh, no.
That part I would not be a fan of, because that's just going to potentially cause a bigger problem for the district. So, my 2 cents worth.
So I was surprised when I found out that we were in the minority. Like when I found out that we were in the minority, I was surprised. And have our school nurses weighed in on the process of the daily inspections and what does that look like, and what kind of a drain on them is that?
They are behind this change, our school nurses are. So they do work with the families, and they do check the children. If they've been sent home currently, they check them when they come back the next several days to make sure that they do not have an infestation. And this is typically more at the elementary level than the secondary level. We do not have as many cases at the secondary level, but we do have some youngsters who have been missing quite a bit of school with NITS. The hope is to be able to get them back in school so they're not missing instruction time.
And the sad thing with that is we don't know if those NITs are even viable anymore.
Right.
And so these kids are missing out because they potentially have not the right tools or equipment to get rid of any of the NITs that are still attached that are non-viable. It's a disservice to our students.
All right, any more discussion? All right, am I the only one here who's itching thinking about this? Holy smokes. Roman numeral 8M. Recommend the board approve the Valley View boys tennis team trip to Hilton Head, South Carolina over spring break 2025. I make a motion that we approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Have we figured out how they're going to get there?
That was my question.
They're working on parent.
Okay.
Right.
So the issue is just because of the distance, there are restrictions on using our district vehicles.
Correct.
All right, any more discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yes.
Ms. Griffin.
Yes.
Mr. Rudd.
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore.
Yes.
And Dr. Smith.
Yes.
Roman numeral 8N, recommend the board approve continued membership in the OHSAA for 2025-2026. I make a motion to that effect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yes.
Ms. Griffin. Yes. Mr. Rudd.
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore.
Yes.
Dr. Smith.
Yes.
Roman numeral 8O, recommend the board approve a series of policies, a substantial stack of policies that have been provided to us by Neola. Stephanie, I understand that there are 3 that you would like to discuss separately, perhaps, or maybe less than that.
2 for sure.
Which policy numbers are those?
So 0142.1, the oath,
Yep.
and then 5780, student parent rights.
Okay. All right. And so I'm going to make a motion. You've all had a chance to review these. I'm going to make a motion that removing from consideration for now policy 0142.1 and policy 5780, but everything else that we approve the policy as put forth by Neola. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yes.
Ms. Griffin.
Yes.
Mr. Rudd.
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore.
Yes.
And Dr. Smith.
Yes.
With regard to proposed policy 0142.1, the oath, Stephanie, what concerns do you have with the policy as it's written?
So the policy is regarding board members swearing in, and I will read the policy real quick. It's a very short one, so it won't take us long. Says each member of the board shall, before entering, and they're striking out his or hers to put the word "the," duties of the office, take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and to, they're striking out the word "perform," faithfully, and adding in, and impartially perform the duties of the, and striking out his, her office. The oath of the office shall be administered to new members by the treasurer or a member of the board. That's new verbiage, that last sentence. The issue that I had with this was the verbiage that says, and impartially perform. I understand, I think, to a certain degree what their intent was, but the reality is, and we knew when we decided to run for board and when we got elected, that we were going to have to make some tough decisions. And I think it's very, very hard to use the word impartial. Several synonyms of the word impartial are that you're going to be fair. And sometimes it's very hard to be fair because it can be a very polarized subject or topic. If you say yes, there's going to be a lot of people who may be very upset. Or if you say no, it's the opposite to be true. I think using the word impartial sets us up as a board to potentially, if we remain impartial on any tough subject, we're not going to be able to really perform our duty. We're not going to be able to come to some type of a resolution or a decision without somebody crying out that we're being impartial. And I think the better verbiage, instead of using that, is that we respectfully consider varying viewpoints on each issue brought before the board. I really feel like that's the most important thing, that we need to be respectful and hear from everybody who has varying viewpoints. And then from there, we have to make the best decision that we can. But that word impartial is just, that's really, really tough to do sometimes, as much as I know I personally do try to be as open to all viewpoints and really be respectful and listen to them and really actively listen. But at the same time, to put it in there to be impartial, I think that's really just not good policy. That's my thought. I'm open for more discussion here.
I like faithfully perform that we already have.
Okay.
I mean, that I think that encapsulates what our role is to have an allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and to the state of Ohio and to faithfully carry out that duty. I don't know that we need more words. Any other thoughts?
Do we know why the change was made? Is it a legal issue of some sort?
Yeah, I haven't asked, but I'm unaware of any mandate that we would use that language. So we don't have to adopt the new policy if we don't want to. But since it's on the agenda, if someone wants to make a motion that we adopt 0142.1, they can. And if they don't, we'll move on. All right, no motion. Proposed policy 5780. Stephanie, what are your thoughts on that?
So on this is a much larger policy. There is a section in here that it does talk about parents' right to inspect instructional materials, and certainly we've had some issues come up regarding a survey recently from the tobacco industry, or on tobacco use, I should say. And then also we've had some curriculum or some additional reading materials that parents had brought up concerns. And in my thoughts, and I did talk to Andrea Cook before we had this meeting, I believe that we could do a better job as a school district in identifying any additional material, whether it's a textbook, pamphlet, survey, additional reading, whatever the case may be, that we could do a better job at least knowing whether or not there may be sensitive information within the reading, and then from there, make sure that we're making it extremely transparent to the families when we post a list of books or curriculum information or whatever, that we put, if there is a particular book that does have sensitive information in it, that we're putting what that sensitive information is. Sexually explicit material or this or that, or whatever the verbiage is, we need to not just list what we're going to offer for books to read. Parents don't have time to read all those books and ferret them out ahead of time. Some may, I don't know. I know I wouldn't have time to do that, but I do think we could do a better job at letting families know these are the book choices we have to offer. There may be some sensitive information in here, and making sure they're aware of that. I think that's the kind and the right thing to do. I don't want to get into a discussion about banning books. I am not for banning books. I'm just not. But I also feel that we need to be very careful as a board and as a district what type of educational material we offer, and making sure families truly know up front, hey, this book they've written here, there may be an issue that I might have concern with. And I think families need to have that right up in the forefront to know, hey, gee, maybe I just don't want my child to see this book. That's great. There may be other families who want their child to read that book. That's fine too. But what I don't want is a book to just be, available without the parents really not knowing. I think the parents put their trust in us and assume that we've done the vetting or the screening. Just like if you take your kid to the movie, you'd like to think that the ratings on those movies are somewhat accurate. They may or may not always be, but I think we could just do a little bit better job about that. Those are my thoughts.
Anybody else? So this has kind of been the perfect storm of a month in terms of issues like this coming to the forefront. One, with regard to the very poorly named tobacco survey. The CDC should be ashamed of itself, and so should the Ohio State Board of Education in passing that on to us. And frankly, we should have done a better job reviewing that and vetting it. I would like to thank Ms. Cook for her very prompt addressing of that issue when it came along. I don't think that's going to be an issue going forward. And then the question of reading and what reading material is appropriate. I happen to agree with Stephanie on this. I'm not a book banner, but I do believe in parents, and I do believe in parents being informed. And I recognize that there is value in considering who is to bear the burden of informing the parents. And I see both sides of that coin. As a parent, I see people having an obligation to be proactive. At the same time, if a classroom is going to put forward something, and let's be honest, we all know what's objectionable. If I were going, and I read Huck Finn in school like everybody else, and if I were going to have students read that, I would make sure that I told the parents, listen, there's going to be some language in this that you're not going to be comfortable with, and that you might not want your student to read. Same thing with the book that came to the forefront recently. I think we can identify what that is, and I don't think it's that big of a burden for someone who's going to be assigning something to take the initiative and say, this is what we're going to be looking at in class. It can be available to you, but hey, listen, page 143 might be trouble for you. And again, I'm from the generation that watched Romeo and Juliet in freshman English, and probably shouldn't have. But somebody decided that this was appropriate for the 9th grade students at North One High School. And I think here, it's not that big of an ask to put the burden on a teacher who's assigning something to make sure to be proactive in identifying what may be problematic. And I don't think that there's really any gray area as to what, we know what people are, because when it comes forward, we've seen it. Any further discussion?
So I recommend that if we do accept this policy, and they've added some information in here, additional information, which I have no issue with, but I do believe that there should be a statement within this policy added that administrators and educators within the school district will, in written format, email or otherwise, notify parents of any sensitive topics within their material. And then I would be on board with approving this policy.
So I make a motion that we do nothing with this policy until we've reconvened and had an opportunity to draft that language.
Okay.
Would someone like to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Can I ask a question on this?
Maybe, probably, yes, quickly.
Why isn't there a policy across the board that doesn't allow sexual content?
Drafting that, see, this is where you get into, and this could be a long discussion. This is the difference between, for example, common law and code law, right? So like in most of the country, like the way we evaluate things is by a reasonable person standard, whereas in other parts of the country, particularly the state of Louisiana, they still use the Napoleonic Code. And if there's not a specific description of this is okay, this is not okay, this is okay, this is not okay, then it's not against the law, right? And so most of Western civilization has adopted kind of a common law system that's going to look at something holistically, and you're going to look at, okay, well, who is my audience, and what are the issues, and what is the curriculum goal, and is this germane? I don't know that at the board level that it is. Listen, we could pass a policy that says sexually explicit is forbidden, right? And frankly, we have obscenity laws that make us not have to pass that policy. It's where you get into the question, okay, well, what is that? And Justice Potter, you know, one of the greatest quotes we've had handed down in jurisdiction was, what's obscenity? And his response was, I don't know, but I know it when I see it, right? And it's really, really, really hard to govern and regulate when you're dealing with things that are somewhat amorphous. But I totally understand where your question's coming from. I'm not sure what the answer is, other than I think that setting clear expectations, and then what you do is if we do end up passing a policy to where the parents are having to, or the teachers are having to show the parents ahead of time, well, then that's going to give the parents the opportunity to say, well, here, this is what I think about this. They can talk to the administrators and they can make those decisions, because I don't know that we're going to ever get agreement on a community-wide basis. Again, on the types of, on most things. On some things, we ought to have really, really strong agreement, and I would like to think that those things never come to the forefront in our schools. But in terms of passing a policy that just says yes or no, I mean, we're way more on an analog scale than a digital scale when we're trying to analyze things like this.
I will add that it's not all about sexual stuff. That's why I use the word sensitive in nature, because there was more than just that.
Right.
You know, when you're taking poor people and calling them ignorant or stupid, I came from a very poor family, very, very poor family. I take great offense to that. When you're using N-words, that's very offensive language. So, sensitive for sure. I just want to make sure, because I think some people's focus went really, really in that direction. And that was kind of, oh gosh, yeah, it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. But I will say that it's going to be tough, because like he's just describing, you know, what is sensitive? What might be sensitive to me may not be for you or somebody else.
I just think
So
that
it's tough.
we should feel safe that our kids are not going to be dealing with the sexual content in school. I just don't think there's any place for that. I agree, there's no place for the N-word. There's no place for a lot of things.
I think,
Just wondering about
I
that.
appreciate your sentiment. I really do.
I think if we're gonna put like a written, you know, policy that's stating what Stephanie was alluding to, that we need to also put in there that there's, you know, going to be options for those students that, you know, might not be reading that book, or their parents might not be comfortable with them reading that there will be options that they can choose from.
Sure.
And they did have that option.
Right.
But the problem was, my perception of the problem was, is that the parents were given a list, but there was no warning or statement issued attached to any particular ones that, hey, there might be sensitive topics.
So yeah, I mean, like, maybe
My
we need to
understanding.
point out that there's, you know, okay, yeah, you might not want your child to read this book and this book because of X, Y, Z on this page, but here's options that have been vetted and we know that there is no sensitive, material or.
Well, and I would like to think that we could reach a point to where we can find curriculum-appropriate texts that don't cross those lines.
I agree.
At the same time, I read Lord of the Flies when I was in high school, and you know what? That crossed a lot of lines for a lot of people. And same thing with Catcher in the Rye, and same thing with a lot of other things.
All the
And so-
Judy Blume books, I read them all.
Yeah.
Turned out
So,
okay. So,
We understand. We understand. And I think what Stephanie has proposed is a really, really good step in the right direction. And, there are other things that we can think about too. I mean, we could think about identifying specific potential categories so that our teachers know what to look out for. And they say, oh, okay, well, this falls in with violence. Maybe there's a violence issue within the book, Lord of the Flies. I mean, they're dancing around a pig's head on a pike, right? There's violence issues there. There could be any number of things. And maybe we find ways, and this is going to involve talking with administrators, talking with teachers, to facilitate the carrying out of the types of disclosures that ought to be there. But I agree with Stephanie. I didn't read all my kids' books in high school. Now, my younger daughter's a poli-sci major. I read all her books now, and we talk about them, and we have a great time. But not everybody has the time, nor the inclination, nor the initiative to do that. And so putting that burden on the teachers is something I'm very comfortable with.
I agree. I don't think that it should fall on the school board.
All right, so if we don't have a motion, do we have a motion to table that? Did that get seconded?
Yes.
Did we
Tyson.
vote on that?
Tyson and you two. We actually don't need a motion. We'll just not approve those.
Okay.
And then we'll come back with either change or whatever. We'll work with administrators.
Awesome,
on
thank
that
you.
change and bring it back.
All right, Roman numeral 9, superintendent's comments.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Rudd. I just want to thank Mr. McKee for his presentation tonight with regard to work-based learning, more CCP courses, increased rigor in the classroom, more AP offerings for our students. I know they can do it, and I think it'll give them a great platform when they're doing their applications for college, as well as Career Center coursework when they're going off to the Career Center as juniors. So a lot of information that's going to be available to our students in the future that is going to be very good information for them for their futures, as well as that in the middle school offerings for next year. I know we didn't have a presentation on our middle school offerings, but you'll see some electives there that have shifted a little bit. Also with regards to getting students ready for career and college readiness. So we're excited about both of those. The associate pathway, I think, is an excellent direction for our students. That is not something that we've seen in a lot of high schools, but it is an opportunity for our students and families to save money as our students go off to post-secondary education. And lastly, I'd like to give a big thank you, he's not here, but to Mr. Kazarik for, he and his family have been in education in Valley View schools for over 60 years. So this is, I was talking with him, this is a bit of an end of an era for that family, and they have served our district and they've served them well. And we will be looking for qualities in our next leader of our middle school for next year very soon. So you'll see some information coming out on that.
Thank you. Board member comments. I think let's go left or right here. Kylie, you go first.
The tickets for the musical went on sale today, so come out and support us. We've been working for a few months now, and it's an exciting show, so I hope to see a lot of you there.
Oh.
So there's various activities going on in the high school right now. It's Hope Week for Hope Squad, which is basically just kindness week. We spread kindness. We're passing out hot chocolate to students just to like brighten people's days. And then also a lot of clubs in the school are coming together to raise money for heart disease. And at the basketball game on Saturday, we're going to present a check to our trainers, just going towards that. So if anyone in the community would like to donate, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Tyson?
Farmersville people, so we're at that point right now. We had to vote tonight to take the next steps in the grant, and that will be done by the 12th. Right? So after that, then we'll wait until we hear what we're getting. Thanks to the donors. One more thing. I'll think about it.
We can always come back
Yeah,
to
go
it.
ahead.
Okay. Steph?
So yeah, thank you to the Kazariks for 60 years of investing in our students. That's pretty impressive, and definitely appreciate their donation as well. Um, um, Also wanted to mention something. I have seen a lot of embarrassing behavior by adults on social media. Social media is not usually I'm on there, but I don't talk or get out there and put a lot of stuff out there. That's just not who I am, and that's not how I operate. But some of the horrible behavior, the name calling, when you get behind a keyboard and decide that you are going to take a little partial bit of information and run with it and call one of our teachers in this district a horrible name, and you don't even know that person, and you do not know the situation surrounding it, you don't truly know the situation surrounding it. I was absolutely, completely embarrassed to think that there was a parent out there willing to name call a teacher who has dedicated their career, their life, and chose to work here at Valley View for our children to be called something like that. I was absolutely mortified. No teacher should have to be attacked like that. If you have a concern, go to the teacher. Please, always be respectful. I'm sure most of your parents taught you that. I hope your parents taught you that. I try to be respectful. I may not always agree with what others have to say, but I agree, I try to agree respectfully and agree to disagree. It's a polite thing to do. When you have people out there who are referring to their Board of Education as something that your dog drops as waste on the yard, okay, yes, we knew when we ran for board that this was not going to be an easy role, and it is not an easy role. But we're here because we all care about these kids. We come here, we do our work, we give all we have, okay? And we all give it in different ways. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. But to talk about your board in a manner that's that ugly, it's embarrassing. Our community is better than this. It just is, okay? And it's embarrassing that I even have to have this conversation, really, but, and I'm a tough cookie, so they can bring it all day long to me. I work with neurosurgeons, so I'm good. But I can tell you right now, no one deserves to be disrespected. You can agree to disagree respectfully. But please, anybody who's in any public service, I'm sure the mayor can speak too, it's tough. You're not going to please everybody. But don't attack our teachers. Try to get to understand respectfully the situation. Don't take a little bit of rumorville or partial truth, or maybe 100% truth, and run with it thinking you are now the expert. Please, do your due diligence. Be kind. Our kids are watching. Please. All right. Okay.
Did someone really call us dog stuff?
Oh.
Know what I'm looking at.
Little video
I know what I'm looking at when I get
Little
home
video
tonight.
clip.
Tyson, do you remember your
Yeah,
third
I
item?
did.
Thank you.
It was About Safety Committee.
Yes.
Safety Committee has had its second meeting, and we have identified and begun to implement low cost, very low to zero cost safety solutions to keep the building safer. That was it.
All right. To be honest, I don't really have that much to say. But Germantown, we haven't forgot about you. We got the Germantown building issue to take care of as well, and so folks need to understand that there are irons in the fire there. There are options, and that I think everyone's goal, from the cities to the boards, is for that building to remain at the top of the hill in Germantown. And I think everybody's on board with that. It's a question of how do we do that in a way that is the best stewardship of the district's resources, and at the same time take seriously what I believe to be a real moral obligation to the people of Germantown. And so they're still in the works on that. And so, and I will say, and I've said this before, whatever we do can be crafted, and I think should be crafted, to have a right of reversion if it ever stops being used for the purposes that it's intended to be used, that it would come back to the district. It can be organized that way so that at the very least, sometime down the road, after we've given it a chance to work, the very least, the worst case scenario is it just becomes our problem again. And then we're in the same boat we are, it's just we're further down the road, and maybe the economic realities have changed a bit. So just don't want anybody to think that while we're talking about Farmersville, that Germantown is out of mind, because it's not.
I'd just like to follow up with Mrs. Cook as well. I really like what I read about the course of studies, both the middle school and the high school. Just so many more opportunities than what the students have had in the past. I like the pre-AP in junior high, which is new. Some of the life health classes in the high school I thought were impressive. So I'm just excited to see how they turn out.
I don't have much to say either, other than congratulations to Mr. Kazarik for his retirement. He actually was my science teacher in the 8th grade, and so I actually remember some of the projects he had us work on, so that can tell you, like, years later, that he actually does have an impact, teachers do. And so congratulations. I also want to say I read very thoroughly over the forthcoming academic plans. I'm very impressed with what the high school is having to offer. Also, my daughter came home very excited, like telling me about all the classes and options that she now has to choose from. So hearing that firsthand and the excitement is very promising, and I look forward to see what we have to offer in years to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Joel. All right, numeral 11, I make a motion we adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Valerie, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yes.
Ms. Griffin.
Yes.
Mr. Rudd.
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore.
Yes.
Dr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're adjourned. Eric, I have things to sign for you.
Nothing.
Valerie?
Yeah. I was